Hello boys and girls, welcome back for another lesson of biology. Today we are going through lesson 20 about genetics of variations. Before you start watching the video, remember to like and subscribe the channel and also share the video to your classmates and remind them to do their revision. Let's start. There are two types of variation in all the organisms. The first type, we call them the continuous variation, while the second type, we call them the discontinuous variation. Let's take a look at the first one, continuous variation. Continuous variation means it has a continuous range of intermediate phenotypes between the two extremes, such as height. In the world, there are people who are very, very short, while there are people who are very, very tall. They are the two extremes, and in between, there are different heights in human being. Other examples such as weight and skin color, they are also continuous variation. This variation is controlled by many genes, and it can be also affected by the environment. Think about the case of height or weight. It can be also affected by the environment or the diet, etc. In the diagram below, there is a histogram to show the height of a group of adults. You will be able to see there are extremes. There are people who are very, very short, and there are people who are very, very tall. And if we join the number of people in different height groups, you will be able to see a normal distribution curve, which is bell-shaped. This curve shows that this variation is a continuous variation. The second type of variation, we call it the discontinuous variation. It has only a few distinct phenotypes with no intermediates, and this variation is controlled by a pair of alleles only, and it is less likely to be affected by the environment. For the discontinuous variation, examples such as the ability to roll the tongue. You can either roll or cannot roll. There is no intermediate. Or three ear loop or attached ear loop. Shape of the hairline such as the window peak or straight hairline. Straight thumb or the hitchhiker's thumb, or we call it the curved thumb. Now let's take a look at the question. If the identical twins were brought up in two different countries, what does it mean by identical twins? That means they are genetically identical. Alright, so question 1, can you give me one body characteristics which is identical in both offspring? The answer should be, you have to give me any characteristics which belongs to the discontinuous variation. Example of discontinuous variation, such as the tongue rolling ability. So both of the identical twins, they should be either able to roll their tongue, or both of them, they are not able to roll their tongue. They should have the same tongue rolling ability. Question 2. Can you give me one body characteristics which they might differ from each other? Although they are genetically identical, some of the body character might be different, such as give me an example of the continuous variation. Examples such as the weight. If they have different food in their diets, they have different exercise habit, of course, they can have different body weight or height, etc. Alright, so there are different examples. All of these characters, which they are different from each other, belongs to the continuous variation. There are different causes of variation, such as it can be caused by heredity or the environment. Let's take a look at the heredity first. Let's take a look at the causes of variation. One of it is due to the heredity, caused by the genetic difference. We call that genetic variation. And the cause of genetic variation may due to the independent assortment of the chromosome at the meiosis metaphase 1. Let's take a look at the picture below. When the homologous chromosomes they are lined up at the center or the equator of the cell, they can have different arrangements. They can have all the maternal red chromosome lying on one side, or the paternal chromosome, the blue chromosome, lying on one side, like this. And when they separate, you will give these two types of gametes. But another possible arrangement of the paternal chromosome and the maternal chromosome is they can have a different arrangement of the homologous chromosome while pairing up, like this. Unlike the previous one, the shorter homologous chromosome, they are switching places, and when they separate in the middle, you will have another possibility coming out. So you might have a longer blue chromosome with a shorter red chromosome, or you can have a longer red chromosome and a shorter blue chromosome, and we call this special arrangement of the homologous chromosome randomly and separation giving different gametes. We call this situation the independent assortment of chromosome at meiosis. It gives different combination of gametes. Another possible cause of genetic variation is the crossing over at meiosis. From the diagram below, you will see the homologous chromosome, the paternal and the maternal chromosome pairing up together. And for each of the chromosome, inside there are two sister chromatids, left and right, sticking together. And I want you to focus on the non-sister chromatid over here. This one and this one. These two together, they are the non-sister chromatid of homologous chromosome. For the homologous chromosome, they can separate directly as case 1 to give two combinations of gametes. Or it can have some crossing over occurring on case 2 like this. When crossing over occur, we will be able to see for the non-sister chromatid over here, they just cross up with each other and then they change the partner. And we call this the crossing over of non-sister chromatid of homologous chromosome. So let's write it down. Crossing over of non-sister chromatid of homologous chromosome. And after separation, instead of two combinations, it shows 4 combinations over here as the gametes. This shows genetic variation. Another reason for genetic variation is the random fertilization of gametes. For the sperm and ovum, each of the time they carry different chromosome, and when they fuse up together, it gives different combinations of allele and gametes and gives different zygotes. The very last reason for having genetic variation is mutation, Chinese 突變. It is a sudden and permanent change of the DNA as well as in the gene. When there is a change in DNA, it will change the protein produced and it will change the metabolic activity and therefore change your phenotype. Mutation is very rare and only the mutation that occurs in gametes or gametes producing cells such as the testes and the ovary can pass on to the next generation. So showing the diagram here, there's a female. She is trying to wear a protective coat near her lower bottom body part, which is the place of her ovary. This helps to prevent the ovary, the sex gametes producing cells in ovary from getting radiations and preventing mutation. Besides the genetic variation, environment also causes variation on organisms. Environment, it can affect the phenotype, but not the genotype, and the environmental effect is not inheritable. In the case of identical twins, although they have the exact same genotype, the same DNA, the same chromosome, if one is brought up in a well-nourished environment, while the other one is brought up in a poorly nourished environment, they will show the difference in the weight. So this is an example of showing how the environment affects the phenotype of an organism. Another environmental effect giving different phenotype is the garlic chives, 韭菜. It has a gene for producing chlorophyll. The green pigment only functions in the presence of the light. So therefore, if the garlic chives is grown under sunlight, it will show the green color as the garlic chives. But if the garlic chives, they are shielded from sunlight and grow in the dark, they will be growing out as the yellow chives, 韭黃 instead of 韭菜. So this shows that the phenotype can be affected by the environment again. That's it for the part about variation and also all the parts about the chapter 26 genetics. I will see you in the next video about the worksheets and the homework. See you, bye bye.